I want to take you guys through some methods and techniques I've found that really help me to boost my motivation and productivity, especially when it comes to balancing working with gaming. I think this is a really important topic to think about because how you manage your time and your downtime and your attitude it's really what stands between you and your potential when you think about it. I think we need to start by talking about motivation. The first thing to think about is, well, what actually fascinates and excites you when it comes to your art or your work? Do you love the process or do you love the outcome? Are you fascinated by the craft and the evolution, or the product, the views, the comments, the effects? And both are perfectly valid avenues, but it's important to be aware of your motives so that you can manage and pursue them. Now, for me personally, I love the process more than anything else. I love making a palette of sounds and ideas that I like individually and then weaving them together into something new. I absolutely love that. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, but I don't know what the final product is going to be. And when I'm seriously in the moment, it's as if I step outside of time and I have absolutely no regard for end results or outcomes, which is massively liberating. If I do allow my mind to go wading through the waters of what ifs and maybes and outcomes, I find a lot of thoughts that more or less destroy my energy to create anything. Thoughts like, how many clicks or tweets is this going to get? Will this be as good as the last thing I put out? What if I'm losing my touch? Blah, blah, blah. I think it's 90% ego. It's like the ego trying to protect itself. And your ego will come between you and your work and your relationships and your life in ways you can't even imagine. So I don't give it much energy. I don't pay a lot of attention to outcomes. I very rarely go through my Twitter or my comments. And when I do, it's with a purpose. In my 20s, I used to go through Twitter casually. My ego was addicted to feeling validated by a whole heap of people I've never even met and probably never will. I don't go through it casually anymore because when I go through social media casually, it's allowing my ego to determine what role social media plays in my life. It nurtures a dependence. It makes me crave distraction. It allows the machine to feed my mind when I want to be the curator of my mind. So I'll take my iPad to a cafe, I'll grab a coffee, and for 1 hour, I will limit myself to the pure intention of just returning people's kindness, replying to comments, and doing admin, maintaining my brand. I think the next thing for us to do is to define motivation. What actually is it? So that we can understand how to pursue it. I think most, if not all things we experience, is a form of converted energy. And motivation is no different. If you're lacking motivation, it means you don't have energy incoming. We can't make energy out of nothing. No artist ever did that. It has to come from somewhere so that we can convert it into inspiration and motivation. So you have to draw energy from absolutely everything. If you see or hear something that stimulates you, then save it into a scrapbook. If you see a photograph or a logo, or you hear a chord structure or a melody you really like, then save it to a folder, especially with all the cloud storage service we've got now that you can access from all of your devices. You want to make a vault of creative energy, sort of a repository of ideas. You don't want to buy into this idea that you've got to be totally original, because you probably won't be. You will eventually bring your own soul to the table, and I think that's something you should strive for, if not only for your own satisfaction, but you need to make yourself receptive to energy and ideas and creativity. And there's a few really important things you need to pay attention to make yourself more receptive. One is diet. One is social activity. The other is your range of activities throughout the day and your income of new things, new places, new people, new experiences. And I'll talk about these things a bit later on. I want to talk now about making your work a game. What's helped me to balance gaming with working is to ask myself, okay, what do I actually find so addictive and rewarding about games? Why did I spend the vast majority of my 20s with a controller in my hands? Whether it's World of Warcraft or it's Red Dead or it's Fallout or it's Control or it's Cyberpunk, which just came out, you're roped into this sort of loop cycle, if I can get my teeth in, of dopamine hits. It's like it's easy dopamine. Now I absolutely love being outside of time and in the moment, as I've said. And of course, games do that for me. They constantly reward me for being present, but also for growing and solving problems, at least giving me the illusion. But when I put my mind to it, it turns out that my work can give me the same satisfaction. I think what enables us to get so addicted to a game is the fact that we fundamentally don't care that much about it. We get to level 60, we unlock some new skills, but then we close it down, right? And we move on with our day. We're not spiritually or egoically invested in what we do or don't achieve in a game. Wouldn't it be great if your work could be the same way? Because I think that's what paves the way for us to get so addicted. Is Elon Musk in it for the outcomes or the sport? I wonder. I do ask myself that. And the same thing with Steve Jobs. Was he in it for the outcomes or the sport? So if you can figure out how to be just as detached and yet immersed and fascinated and rewarded and challenged by your work, then it can, I believe, become a game. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is structuring your work into blocks of time. Now, you can't plan creativity, and you can't make a flower grow by pulling it out of the soil. But what you can do is facilitate it. You can nourish it, be there for it. And I think this is where your thinking brain has a very real purpose. I like to break my week up into creativity days and productivity days. So days when I can hyper-focus on one or two artistic projects and not much else. And then days when I can focus more on getting things done, like washing the car, emails, spreadsheets, etc. So for example, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I allocate the first few hours after I've woken up to creating and experimenting. And I'll talk more about why I do that after I've woken up later. And on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, I have more of a to-do list. And what I do on those days is I break my work up into 45-minute blocks, separated by sort of 15 or 20-minute breaks, because otherwise I get the most fantastic tunnel vision. And by the time I get to 4 o'clock, I have the most colossal headache. I find that work blocks on my productivity days are useful for two reasons. One, they prevent me from getting tunnel vision, like I said. And two, it calms my fear of being consumed. When we fear being consumed by something, that's when we are likely to procrastinate. So my mind is a lot more agreeable when I give it a small task instead of the whole picture. There's a great book you should read about this called The 1% Rule. I think it might be Tommy Baker. And you should also read The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. It's all about combating procrastination by taking your work more seriously. So If I can move the needle forward on each of my projects by just 1% each day, well, that's a lot better than zero, and it means I'm guaranteed to finish them in 100 days, in theory. The next thing I want to talk about is structuring your day. So as I said, I think you should use the first few hours after you've woken up to do your most creative and mentally demanding work. I think this is really important. I've always found my brain is at its best after I've woken up. So in the afternoons and the evenings, I do things that don't require much creativity, like spreadsheets and emails. I never do any work at night because by that point, my brain is running so far below efficiency that it just isn't really worth it. So nighttime is when I'll usually do something therapeutic, like playing a game. My brain is fried. I'm past the point of diminishing returns. Now's a good time to do something relaxing. I think you should also take note of the range of your activities throughout the day. It's important to put yourself on your to-do list and not just stuff you want to get done. It's very easy to become a workaholic when we think about all of these things. So go for a drive, catch up with friends, take photos, meditate. There are days when I sometimes need to get a single project to completion, but I find my mood and my satisfaction seems to benefit more when I'm actually mixing up my day. So as much as I love being in the Batcave, crafting something, if it's all I do for the whole day, I can get pretty miserable because my body just isn't really designed to do that. So you want to break your work up into blocks of time, and you want to give your day some variety. You want to strike that balance, which you should know all about if you've been watching Cobra Kai on Netflix. Your work is very important, but so is actually living. The next thing I want to talk about is diet. This is a big one. I very easily forget to drink water throughout the day, so I use apps like Streaks to help me and motivate me. I also get really bad brain fog and mood swings if I'm not eating protein throughout the day, if I'm not eating well regularly. So I keep my pantry stocked with cans of tuna. I make a chicken and vegetable soup that I keep in the fridge. I also make an effort to avoid sugar and carbs and even large meals because I find that my brain is really sensitive to inflammation. If you're not a big eater like me, and if you're just not a big food person, then you should look into smoothies. I also have a 2-liter jug in my fridge that I keep stocked up with a smoothie that I make. So I use fruits, nuts, seeds, whey protein. I use powders like turmeric, moringa, spirulina. Matcha powder is a good one. And I think it all goes towards keeping up my moods and my energy levels. And what I love the most is that it's really quick to get down. I actually think a smoothie can be faster to digest, if I'm not mistaken. It can take me a good half an hour to make a smoothie, so it's a good time to put some headphones on, get some music going. I find work is much easier to do when you've got music playing. I don't know what it is. The last thing I'll say about diet is if you find yourself really struggling with motivation or mood in general, you might try taking out inflammatory things like gluten, bread, carbs, sugar, especially refined products. You should try minimizing, if not eliminating those things. I actually recently tried eating nothing but chicken, veggies, bacon, and sausage for a week. And it's now something I want to continue because my moods have improved and my energy has gone up. So it's something to think about. I also want to talk about exercise. This is a really big one. I think it's absolutely vital that you exercise regularly, whether it's a fast walk for 45 minutes or it's a session at the gym, I've consistently found that if I don't exercise in some capacity for a whole week, that I can turn into a zombie on the inside. I can get very sad, I lose my motivation, and I can honestly feel my life force diminishing. But if I hit the gym for just 45 minutes, or I go for an hour-long walk every day, then my energy and my optimism, my productivity is so much better on the days that follow. Every single time. So if you have weights at home, or you have access to a gym, preferably a gym you actually enjoy going to, then try to incorporate like 2 45-minute workouts throughout your week. You're not trying to kill yourself. You're not trying to shred like Schwarzenegger. You're doing it because of how amazing you feel afterwards and how drastically it can improve your life. I think you will notice the mental benefits almost immediately, and I'm 90% certain that your motivation and your productivity will increase. It certainly has for me. I'd also suggest, just before I finish this section, that you try taking a cold shower every day. Start with 30 seconds and then maybe do a minute the next day. Breathe deeply and enjoy it, because a cold shower can be really invigorating. You know, it increases your endorphins, which can help with depression. It can improve your metabolism. It can improve your circulation. Let's talk about social activity. If you're in the studio all the time like me and you're creating and that's your whole reason for existing, then you lose track of social activity and your mind turns into its own echo chamber. You get feedback loops where it's very similar to holding a microphone to a speaker and you get that whining. So I think socializing, whether it's with your friends or your family, is really important because it gives your mind something to bounce off. Isolation is so bad for you. Your mind falls into that feedback loop. Like when you have the mic against a speaker, it's energy trapped between two mirrors. It's not evolving. It's not going anywhere. It's so important that you frequently interact with somebody. You exchange thoughts, ideas, you exchange body language. Your perspectives will change. Your ideas will evolve. Somebody once said that you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. And I think there's some truth to that. But what that really does is puts into perspective how important it is for you to interact with people. Isolation is really bad. I want to also talk about travel and this concept of creative deprivation. I've often heard it said that travel broadens the mind, and it certainly does, but I think it does a great deal more than that, because when I'm traveling, regardless of the reason, I'm deprived of my ability to spend creative energy. I'm away from the studio. I can't start new projects. I can't work on music. I can't make videos. And on one hand, I absolutely hate that. Sometimes I'll avoid traveling because I hate the idea of not being able to create stuff. But strangely, what it does on the upside is it actually makes me more receptive. It's not just the new places I explore or the new foods I taste or the new people I meet. It's actually the complete deprivation of outlets. So that's something to think about too. And that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover in this very long-winded video. I hope it's helped you to rethink the way you tackle your days and your productivity. There's really many techniques and ways of thinking about this stuff. And if you've made it this far into this video, I'm sure you're keen to hear more. So please do jump into the comments and tell us about your experiences. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? Do you dedicate whole days to recreation, or do you like to mix it up? What sort of dietary changes have you made which might have helped? What's holding you back? What do you need help with? I think this, like I said in the beginning, this is a topic that's worth talking about because it more or less determines what does or doesn't stand between you and your potential. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.